Hi, and welcome to the Gen X Rewind. My name is Evan, and
And I'm Brady.
hi, Brady. And just for informational purposes, we like to remind everybody that Generation X is people born between 1965 and 1980. Both Brady and I fall comfortably within that range. Well, one of us a little more comfortably than the other one. And we're just two regular Gen X guys, and we just like to talk current events, whatever. This is like, hey, if we met for dinner and a beer or something, this is kind of what that conversation would be like. And I was talking to another friend the other day, Brady, who said, uh, people don't want to listen into conversations that are like scripted or
Right.
where they know what somebody's going to say, like sometimes political debates, for instance, or political interviews where one candidate is very scripted and says all these things. Nobody wants to hear that. What people do find interesting is something like Joe Rogan Experience, where generally speaking, it's just two people talking,
Yeah. Makes
right? And yeah, there's some questions that they have for each other that they want to get to and stuff, but they don't let that get in the way of just talking to each other,
right. That makes
right?
sense.
So we like that. We like that format. As a listener or a viewer to our show, you're a fly on the wall, just going to listen to us. It's mostly organic. We do have some segments that we like to do just for fun. We like to bob and weave. We are not politically correct because, after all, we are Gen Xers and we hate that crap. So, if you're really sensitive or woke, you might learn something by watching the show. So, I'm not going to dissuade you, but if you get your feelings hurt, just turn it off, right? Like if you don't like it. But it's mostly PG, so you don't have to worry about that. You can listen to us in the car with your family. That's fine. They might learn something too, right?
That's
Hey,
right.
so the first topic was college football playoffs. What a turkey,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
those four games. Did you get to watch any or all of them?
I did see Ohio State and saw they took care of business pretty easily. And yeah, Texas is they're going to be a tough test, I think, for ASU for sure.
I'm still not buying Texas,
No?
right? Like I feel like they handled their game fine, but it was at home in front of 110,000 people in Austin, right?
Yeah.
Um, so there's that. I don't know. I'm still just not sold on them. I thought Notre Dame looked really good in their game. I thought that Ohio State looked like a top two or three team.
Yeah. They're going to,
They completely dismantled an SEC team, by the way, for all you SEC fanboys. Your representative got torched, and I thought Penn State looked really good as well. So
right.
two Big Ten teams looked really good. One SEC team looked decent, the other was terrible, and the ACC is already out of it, right?
Mm,
Which I think kind of everybody expected.
yeah.
Um, but it was none of those games were good. But here's the thing. Here's my point. See if you agree. We already knew that there weren't 12 great teams all on the same level,
Mhm.
right? Like that's a known thing. That there's no way that that's true. There's generally two, three, maybe four elite teams in any given season. We just don't know who they are right now. You
Right.
could guess that it's Oregon. Probably a lot of people are betting on Georgia to be in that group. Will anybody else be in the group? I don't know. Ohio State made a case, right, to be in that group, but we already kind of knew that.
Mhm.
So the fact that those four teams that lost were all the lower seeds and all the road, how is that a surprise to anybody? Like that shouldn't really surprise anybody.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll see, right? Like we'll see what happens this next week if there's going to be any upsets. These will not be home games, right? So out of the comfort of your home stadium and all of that, maybe that changes the dynamic. a little bit. Some teams travel, better than others. Obviously, Notre Dame will probably travel pretty well as they do. Um, I, I don't know. We'll see, right? Like I just found it. All right, my bias is coming through here. Is anyone else sick and tired of seeing the Kansas City Chiefs play on national television at home? What did I say last week? They play every week, they play a nationally televised game at home, it seems like. And guess what? They did on Saturday, but nobody saw it because for some reason the NFL decided to have two games with quality teams opposite the college football playoffs.
Yeah. No, I was shocked that the Minnesota Seahawks game wasn't on. Couldn't watch that.
Yeah, I have it because I have the NFL package, but why isn't that the game that the people in Arizona get?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a team tied for the best record in the NFC versus a division leader, and that's not your afternoon game. You get the San Francisco, who's essentially out of the playoffs,
Yeah.
right? Like, what I don't like. There's a ton of Seattle fans. Just if you live in Arizona, there's a lot of Seattle. A lot of people get tired of the rain and move to Arizona, and then they complain about the weather and root for the Seahawks.
Yeah. Chicago too with the
Yeah,
Bears.
Chicago too. Yeah, Detroit took care of business today. No problem. Didn't expect there to be. Caleb Williams started 4-2, and now the sheen is off. They're 4-12 or
Yeah.
4-11.
Wheels are off
The
now.
wheels are off. And I told my son, I was like, it took 6 games, but teams got film on him
Hmm.
and they know exactly what he's going to do.
But,
And he can't do anything now. He can run every once in a while and pick up some yards, but he's just been completely confounded by NFL defenses once
right.
they got some film on him, right?
Yeah. Then here's the thing. I'll confess, I was out with 90% of Arizona in the stores today doing some last minute Christmas shopping. And, they had the big Cardinal game up. And, as my daughter and I walk by, we see that it's tied and there was only a few minutes left. And this is the worst team in football that the Cardinals are playing. And I said, hey, let's just stop and watch what happens.
Right.
And they're, charging into the end zone like nothing. And here we go again. The Cardinals are, you know, I'm sure we'll get the same. Well, we got to be better. We got to
Yeah.
business. We got to have some better, practices and get back to the same soundbite. And what I learned today is Cardinals are the worst, have the most losses of any other professional football team in history.
Yeah, because they were the first NFL team, actually. I know Green Bay thinks that they were, but they're not. The Cardinals were. So they've been around for, is it 100 years? It's getting close to 100 years if it's not, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So they are the losingest team in the history of sports.
yeah, yeah. No sign or silver lining with that organization.
No. And,
It's
and what's crazy to me is like I think it's clear after 6 years of Kyler Murray experiment, he's not going to get it done.
oh
We've had some tools around him. He's so frustrating because he can have games like he did earlier this year where he was just, 23 of 26 for
right,
300 yards and 75 yards rushing and just absolutely killing it. And then he has moments where it looks like he doesn't have any idea what he's going to do.
yeah,
And delay of game penalties in overtime. It's like, are you kidding me? Right. And maybe they'll say it's not his fault. They didn't get to play in. It doesn't matter. You're the quarterback. If the
you're right.
play's not coming in, get up to the line and call something yourself for crying out loud. Right.
Yeah, yeah, just like you said, it seems like he does just enough to
Just enough.
keep people off his back, but still, well, in the first half of the season, he looks really, really good. And then all of a sudden, the second half of the season, he's throwing picks like crazy, and they're getting pressure on him, and the ball's coming out, and who knows where it's going sometimes. Um, Yeah,
There
it,
has not been a lot of great quarterback play anywhere this year. I feel like everybody kind of took a step back in most cases this
yeah,
year, except for Sam Darnold, who's having an amazing year for a guy who was like thought to have ended his career,
yeah, and that's the thing.
right?
Going to pay out the nose to keep him, or is he going to be gone? Because I think this is his last
Yeah,
year.
it's just a 1 year deal.
Yeah,
So I think a 1 year, $10 million deal. Now, what I would do is I, it's all going to depend. I think we said this before. It's going to depend on what he does in the playoffs,
yeah,
right? If he's a one and doneer, then it's like you offer him 10 million for another year and maybe you play him and maybe you don't.
yeah,
If he takes you to a Super Bowl or something, it's like then you probably should pay him and stick with him, right?
yeah. You just hope he doesn't get injured, and
Yeah,
now you
just
don't
don't
know
get injured.
what to do. Yeah,
It's like I am amazed that Detroit's able to win games with everybody who's hurt. I saw that they've had 22 players
yeah.
that are out.
At least,
How is that possible?
at least the silver lining, Montgomery might be back in time for the playoffs,
Well,
which
that
is
would be great. And I'm a Montgomery guy because he's from Iowa State. So I love that dude. I went to Iowa State and they've been cranking out fantastic running backs right and left. And
yeah,
he's a tremendous guy to have missing. That was the problem today for the Cardinals. Connor went out in the third quarter, and without him, the offense couldn't muster a whole lot.
yeah.
He had like 170 or 80 all-purpose yards just to start that game.
And what happened to coaches where, it just seems like the really great coaches change based on the results of the game. They'll change the whole plan and scrap things and go a different direction and try different things. It seems like there's a lot of teams that are one note, this is what we're going to do. If it's not working, then we're just going to hope for better
Yeah,
results.
hope for the best. Just keep grinding it out, whatever that game plan was, right?
Yeah, it seems like that's been the case. Unfortunately, well, with the Cardinals, they've got lots of problems, but yeah, you need that. That's critical to change things up and go a
You got
different.
to make adjustments at halftime, and I've seen too many games, both in the pros and college lately, where they come out and just play conservative and do what they were doing, and the other team makes adjustments and just blows them away in the second half,
Right.
right? It's like you have to make adjustments. And I think too many coaches are like, well, let's stick with what was working in the first half. They put up 21 or whatever in the first half. And then it's like, uh, then they don't score again the rest of the game.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
okay, so you didn't make any adjustments at halftime. The other team did completely shut you down. Now where are you? Right.
yeah, yeah. It's unfortunate.
So, and speaking of shutdowns, like that transition, this is like a great transition. The looming government shutdown thing that reared its head this week,
Oh no, man.
um, which it's interesting to think about it because, and I read an article on this too, but it's like when there's a government shutdown, what happens? Nothing. So why do we need the government? Right? It's like they're like all non-essential workers are furloughed during the government shutdown, and then nothing changes. So what are those people actually doing, right? That we need so vitally? Well, the truth is not a whole lot. Have you ever been to a DMV? That's pretty much all government work being done. And if you're government work out there, no, we do lots of great stuff. Okay, go on our X site and list all the great things that you do for all of us, right? Um, and don't say roads and bridges because I'm sure you don't actually do roads and bridges. And usually the government doesn't actually do roads and bridges. They pay a contracting company to do roads and bridges. So there
Yeah,
you go.
the one thing is the military because
Military. That's that's like it, right?
Yeah,
It's like that's the one thing that can't shut down is military. And the other thing that's done, and this is just a ploy to get people to support spending $1 billion, is like, we're going to shut down all the national parks. Good
yeah,
luck, getting by without your national parks. And it's like most people would be like, so I'll go in the summer like normal people.
yeah.
Uh, and I remember, like, do you remember Brady in '96 here in Arizona? We had a better governor at the time, but they had the government shut down. This was during Clinton. And the governor of Arizona said, you can't shut down the Grand Canyon. It's the largest tourist attraction in the entire freaking world. You can't just shut it down. So they, the governor brought the National Guard in to run the Grand Canyon while the government was shut down for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You get people flying from Japan and all over the world to go see the Grand Canyon. Oh, sorry. It's like National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yeah.
Sorry, park's closed. Moose out front should have told you. It's like you can't shut down the Grand Canyon.
No, no. Good luck. Trying to keep people
So
enjoying the beauty of yeah.
I don't think that that's a real threat, though, in terms of like scaring people into spending useless money on stuff, right? It's like, oh, the national parks will be closed for 2 weeks. It's like, okay,
Yeah. Have you been to Havasupai Falls?
I
Did
have not. It's
you,
kind of on a bucket list, except
yeah.
the 12-mile hike is the part that
That's
kind of dissuades me.
Got to train for that one. But
Yeah.
well, I hear now you need a permit and
Sure, all that stuff. There's multiple places in Arizona where you have to pay the government to take a hike.
yeah.
And that's ridiculous to me. And you have to get on a waiting list and you're part of a lottery for like White Pocket and the Wave and stuff in Arizona, which are completely cool. And I get it. They're trying to preserve them because people would go and maybe ruin the thing that's been there supposedly for 40 million years. And so somebody walking on it suddenly will break it. I don't know. It's just
Yeah,
another way to collect money.
well, and the story that I heard was that, it's on a reservation, and
Yes.
so it's not very well, how to say this? It's not streamlined and really organized.
No, it's not.
We had family that drove up there, whatever it is, 5 hour drive to get there. And, they went through all the hoops and got all the paperwork done and the permit and all that. And they drive there and they say, well, no, it's actually closed. There's a Nicolas Cage movie
Oh
that
gosh.
filming, and so it's all shut down. So thanks for coming, but yeah, you can't come in.
That's awful.
Yeah. So that was 10 hours in the car for, you
Oh
know,
my gosh.
somebody in a behind a
Well,
desk.
and it's not like we were in California a couple of years ago and you have to get reservations like 6 months in advance to go to Yosemite.
Yeah.
Like you can't just show up
Yeah.
at a park. It's like, are you kidding me? I have to reserve what? What am I reserving? Entrance into the park. I have to reserve entrance into a 50 billion square mile park.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, it'd be nice to get in on that action somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Get a
And how
toll.
much does it cost me to reserve the spot, right? And how much do I pay to get into the natural park?
You're coming down this street. This is where you live. There's a new toll system here.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. I'm waiting for that. Oh, you want to get home, don't you? Do
Yeah,
you? Okay, well, every exit ramp on the I-17 now has a toll.
yeah,
Don't even mention it because somebody working in the government will hear that and say, "Oh, that sounds like a good idea."
right. Well, paid parking is the newest scam. I
Oh,
think
it's a scam
every
everywhere.
we should have bought land, made it a
Oh my
parking.
gosh, just put up a parking lot. This
You
is
don't.
what we're going to do in our retirement, Brady. We're buying a parking lot and we're going to charge $20 per event
Yeah,
and
and you
just, stand there.
no, you don't even have to be there now. You just have to. They
You
have
have
the
the system with the automated
yeah,
thing.
yeah, and you just threaten them. Your car's going to be
Yeah,
towed.
that's going to get towed.
Yeah,
Right. We
and
don't actually have any tow cars or have a legal right to tow your car, but if we threaten you, we think you'll actually pay.
yeah, you just have to get out of bed once a month and go
Yeah,
see
I
the
love it.
cash bucket that's there.
I'm going to be the parking lot king of Arizona. That's
Yeah.
like from a season of Fargo where the guy was a parking lot with, he owned all the parking lots in Minnesota. And so he was the
Uh,
parking lot king of Minnesota, don't you know?
that's a great business model there.
Yeah, I love that business model. I think that's a good one. Hey,
Yeah.
so you mentioned you were doing some Christmas shopping. This is something that I refuse to do, by the way. Just it doesn't mean that I refuse to buy presents. I like to buy presents, but they invented this thing called Amazon like 25 years ago. And they actually bring the presents and will wrap them and deliver them to your door while you sit in your sweats and watch college football.
It's good to get
So
out once in a while, you know, get the
is
blood,
it? Is it?
prevents blood.
You
Yeah,
get to the point where you want to beat somebody to death over a big screen TV at a Walmart, right? Like,
yeah, it is bad.
goodness.
It is bad. You know, our area, our state is, I think the secret's out. A lot of Midwest is pouring in, and Canadians are pouring in, and Californians are pulling in, and just pouring in. So it just seems like normally things are really, really congested and busy. And then this time of year,
That's terrible.
man, it's crazy.
I don't want to go out to eat. I don't want to do anything. It's just nuts.
It
And
is.
you don't, it's not like, uh, it's just enjoyable to be in your backyard. It was sunny and 83 like 2 days ago. It's like, why do I need to go anyplace? It's like paradise in my own backyard here in the middle of, now it's winter. It's officially winter. It was 80 the first day of winter. I
Yeah.
like saying that because it's kind of fun to stick it to friends who live in cold places and family members. I know
Yeah.
they hate it. They're turning off their computer right now. Stupid
Yeah.
people in Arizona.
Well, wait till the summer and you're cooking and it's
Yeah,
150.
I always do that. They always say, "Wait, talk to me in July." So
Yeah.
then last year it was maybe 102 one day in July, and it was like 104 in Minnesota with like 8 million humidity.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I just posted like, okay, you said to talk to you in July. I'm talking to you. Let me guess, you have your air conditioner on? Uh-huh, so do we. There you go. So the
Yeah.
difference is I don't have my heater on. It's 82 degrees out. So,
You don't have to show
and
sunshine.
and I'm not shoveling the sunshine off my driveway, right? So I do
Huh?
have to mow once a week,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
that's true. And we do get bugs, scorpions we have to deal with.
yeah, but n not as many mosquitoes.
That's true. Yeah. Or, yeah. But I remember
And
looking and
you have your brother used to live in alligator
yeah,
country, right? So he'd have alligators in his backyard.
Tallahassee. Yeah. And it's a federal offense to
You
shoot
can't molest
children.
them.
So you, you,
So they have signs all over. Like I used to live in Florida, and it's like, it is a fine. You'll be fined if you're found molesting alli. And I'm like, I need a picture. What quantifies itself as molesting an alligator, right? Like, I don't think I want to know.
no. Yeah, that's a lot. Got to be a laundry list.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
He's in, what are you in prison for, Billy Bob? I was molesting an alligator and the sheriff caught me.
that was the charge. They're still,
Yeah, that was, that's right. Allegedly.
gosh, yeah.
It's still, I'm still appealing the decision of the jury.
Uh, and you know,
Just
it's
Google a Florida man, right? Like there's that thing. It's like just Google Florida man and then see what comes up because it's the craziest stories you've ever heard, and many of them involve alligators and armadillos, and it's
yeah.
it's just crazy. I don't know what's in the water down there, but they have lots of interesting things that happen.
Well, in tourists, you know, you always read about every once in a while there's somebody who gets nailed by an alligator, and it's a
Yeah,
but also out here in Arizona, it's like people come out here in the summer and it's 105, 110, and they go
they go
hiking,
for a hike.
no water, or you know, they have a little small little shot of water with them. And it seems like every summer somebody passes away from. Uh, I know that what
It's
was
not even an exaggeration, right? Like that literally happens at least once a year. Some tourist dies
yeah
because they were out in the heat and had, a Coke with them. That's it.
yeah, and it's the dry heat. It feels different when you're from
Yeah.
really humid areas and you're in the dry. It doesn't feel as bad as what you experience when it's 95 and really humid. So you think, oh, this isn't too bad, and then
Yeah.
it changes in a hurry when you're out there
You
hiking.
don't sense that you're as hot because you don't feel the sweat,
Yeah,
right? Like that's the difference. In Florida, if you walk to your car, your shirt's dripping wet. In Arizona, no, you can walk around for quite a while and not actually feel the sweat. You're
yeah.
sweating like a gallon a second, but it evaporates and you don't feel it. So then you're like, oh, I'm fine. And then like 30 minutes later, the helicopter is like circling to lift you up and take you to the hospital, right? It's like,
Uh,
oh my goodness. Hey, so I've got in our rewind section, Brady, I've got some questions for you.
yeah.
And we do the rewind section. We talk about things from our past, and we ask each other some questions about it because we might have slightly different experiences, and yet we found we have lots of things in common when it comes to childhood experiences. But so here's my question. My first one is holiday related, as you might guess, since we are just 3 days away from Christmas.
Oh.
What did you do for Christmas Eve and then Christmas Day when you were a kid?
Well, let's see. Christmas Eve, we usually did go to church as a family, and they'd have
Like
the
late? Was it like a candlelight service
yeah, we
or?
do the candles. Where everybody gets a candle, and you sing the Christmas carol songs, um, and there's a real brief message, and then we would open one gift on Christmas,
Okay.
and
You were the one gifters.
it was usually the brown socks or the
Yeah.
you
The
know
underwear.
Yeah, it was the one where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this one you can open this one tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Christmas morning was yeah, that was magical. It was like Christmas Story. It seemed like the snow was
Come
covering.
down in your bunny suit that your aunt gave you.
Yeah, yeah, you race down the stairs and yeah, yeah, with your brother racing to shake and rattle the gifts and.
Did you get a
Uh,
Zeppelin? Did you ever get a Zeppelin or a BB gun?
Yeah, one year did get that, which was a surprise. Uh, but yeah, that it was pretty traditional as far as you know, nothing unusual. We didn't, later on, we would go for a walk, or we try and string out Christmas Day
Yeah.
longer, and so it wasn't just this boom boom over type thing.
Right.
It would last most of the day,
Did
but.
you, was it an orderly opening of presents one at a time, or did you just rip into them?
For us, we would go one at a time,
Mhm.
and my mom would write down to like, oh, okay, this was grandma.
Oh,
Some,
this is what you got from, yeah, okay.
okay, you got the brown socks to go with your dark socks, and then that was
Yeah.
pretty much it. Yeah, and then at the end there'd always be like a big gift. At the end you'd have my dad. Yeah, was good about always kind of having an exciting um, bigger gift that we could play with, a new game for the television, or something exciting that would end it. You know, but that's
Which
yeah,
is, and that's fun because I was thinking about that. Like when I watch the Christmas story every year, like 50 times, right? Like, I especially relate to it because the kid in the show, the time frame, he's almost exactly the age my dad was at that time, right?
Okay.
This is like what I've read is this was probably in 1939, maybe 1940. It's just pre-war.
Yeah.
So, and that kid looks to be about 10, and that's exactly the age my dad was at that exact time. So
Yeah.
that's my dad's experience, right? And so a lot of it really rings true for what his childhood was like and what that was like. And the hiding the big present behind something and bringing it out after everybody thought all the presents were already unwrapped. My dad did that too.
Yeah.
And he would do it where my mom didn't know that he bought the extra present, and then he would hide it, you know. And then he'd be like, "Wait, I see something peeking out over there. What's that? Go check it out." I mean, he did the exact same thing that the guy on the in the movie did, right? Like,
And I always,
um,
because if he actually doesn't have something else, then everyone's looking at him like, all right, Dad, where's the mystery gift that you.
yeah, yeah. Where's the mystery gift? And that one was always from Santa, right? He would just write Santa, and then my mom would look at him disapprovingly, like, "When did you get that?" You know, on the way home from work today. All
You
right.
know,
What did you guys put Christmas lights up outside, kind of a la Clark W. Griswold?
we sure do. Yeah. That's a solid weekend now for me to be out there after work on Friday, get the ladder out. That is the scariest thing for me is getting on the top of that ladder and going across the roof.
Yeah,
But
I won't do that. We put stuff on bushes, and when I was a kid, we didn't do a lot outside because remember back then, like the light bulbs were like incandescent light bulbs,
you're right.
right? They weren't LEDs. These things were like 500 degrees hot, and if you put
Yeah.
them in a dry plant outside, they'd start a fire. It's like
Yeah.
you needed a layer of snow to keep the temperature down from those things, right?
Yeah, the tinsel was an interesting because you have these lights that are, they're massive and they get red hot. And let's just
Yeah.
take little like, tinsel paper things and put it on top. That's probably safe, right?
Yeah. I don't know how we didn't burn our houses down. And then I was thinking about it, and I told my son this. It's like in the if you go back prior to like the 30s and 40s, like before electricity, and my dad remembers this, which is amazing to me. Did remember this. They did put candles on Christmas trees. That's how they lit Christmas trees.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was like a little saucer, and then it had a candle holder in it. You put the handle, and then it had like a clothespin attached to the thing at the bottom, and that's what attached to the and then right before you were going to open the Christmas presents, you'd go around and light all the candles, take your pictures, open the Christmas presents, and then blow them all out,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, can you imagine like lit candles and those were real trees back then, right? I don't even think they'd
Uh,
invented fake ones at the time. And
yeah.
um, man, it's no wonder. It's like trying to deep fry a frozen turkey, right? Like how many houses have been burned down because of that?
Well, and it reminds me of probably the greatest prank that I've ever seen was somebody in our high school went around the day after Christmas. Everybody, has their Christmas trees at the end of their driveway.
Right, right.
Might have been a few days after, but all the Christmas trees are at the end of the driveway for the trash man. They have to throw them in the garbage. So somebody from our high school, is probably a group of guys, went around and got all the Christmas trees and went to somebody in our school's house
Just
and
dumped them in their yard.
they stood them up in the snow. They stood them all up
Nice.
in rows, all in their front yard. So it looked like a forest. You had the house, snow, and then you had this forest,
I
and then
like that.
hysterical. Uh, I thought that was probably one of the most unique, clever.
That's a good one. That would be an interesting one. I remember what the high school kids did when I was a kid was they would go collect everybody's bags of leaves. That's what you used to do in the Midwest. You'd rake up your leaves and put them in like 20 trash bags and stick them out for the garbage man. And they went around and collected, like 300 garbage bags full of leaves and then went to somebody's house and dumped them all in the front yard.
Uh,
Like 8, 10 feet deep of leaves in the front. It's such a great prank because it's non-destructive, doesn't hurt anything, and it just takes like 6 weeks to clean up, right?
oh
It's like,
man, yeah, that
and the
poor.
other one was forking people's yards. I don't know if you ever heard of that one either, but that was take plastic forks, like 1,000 of them, and just stick them into somebody's yard,
Yeah,
right? Just forked it. So they'd have to go around and there's no way to get them out except one at a time.
yeah,
Right. But if 20 kids are forking your yard at 2 o'clock in the morning, they can put in a lot of forks. And then when
right.
it's just you to have to go out and pick them up, it's a
Yeah,
couple hours worth of work.
yeah.
Because,
Somebody,
people would toilet paper houses, but then it would rain and
yeah,
then it's like terrible because then you're done. You just have to wait for the next 10 rains to actually clean it up. It's miserable.
yeah,
Right. And if you egg somebody's house, it can leave, it can stain the paint and everything. So I'm kind of for the non-destructive pranks, but the Christmas tree one, that's a good one.
yeah. That one was clever. We actually did have somebody fork our in high school, and they put anchovies or sardines on
Oh, gross.
the fork. So you just look out and you see all these little fish, suspended in midair. It was
Oh, nasty.
pretty clever, but pretty nasty too.
What was your and my last question is what was your favorite Christmas show when you were a kid?
Favorite Christmas show? Well,
Could be a movie or a TV show.
yeah, we did watch Christmas Story. Um, I'm trying to remember, you know, some of those old claymation like Rudolph.
Yeah.
Us, we most it wasn't a tradition, but we would watch that most Christmas season. Let's see what else. Yeah, I remember those. It is interesting. It makes you wonder why they don't make more.
Nobody can make a good Christmas thing anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
it's
too busy. Like, let's make sure we have an Asian and a black, and and let's make the story like the neighbors are celebrating Hanukkah and Kwanzaa down the street, and it's
it.
like, can't someone just have a stop motion? Can't you just make a new one of those? And
Yeah,
with AI, you could make it more smooth and it would be fun and just make it about a reindeer or something. Why does everything have to be some kind of a point to it? Right.
yeah.
Like, it's like,
I don't.
I just want a Christmas show that's not political.
Yeah, yeah. I don't understand why. I mean, Elf. I mean, how many
That's
billion?
already 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's 20 years ago. How many billions of dollars? I mean, there's got to be an incentive there to make
Yeah, why can't somebody make a good one?
every year they should have one or two big Christmas movies out. And if
It's
it
just
you're gonna watch it, people,
yeah, that's the thing. You'd score big time with it, right?
uh,
Even the bad ones get replayed constantly, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger one, which is terrible, but it's they're playing it every Christmas,
yeah,
right? I forget what the name of that one is, but it's like where he's looking for a toy and Sinbad is in it.
well, yeah,
Sinbad, whatever happened to that dude?
yeah, that's going back a ways.
That's going back.
No, but you think of just how much if you strike it,
Oh man.
I don't understand why there's not more invested into trying to make more quality Christmas movies that people can enjoy for years and years.
I'm gonna write one. I'm gonna use AI. I'm gonna tell AI to write one. I'm gonna set it in like 1981, and I'm gonna tell it, no woke crap. Just here's what I want. I want a regular family, and it's Christmas, and you know,
Yeah,
uh, It's not stressful. I don't like I was watching one, there's an Eddie Murphy one. It starts off, well, he loses his job and then it's can it just be normal and
Yeah,
nice? Like, why do we have to create, the marketing executive is coming home for Christmas and then she meets the gardener in a gazebo in her small town and insults him and then they finally hook up at the it's the lifetime formula. It's just like
yeah,
my son says, just write the plot points on a pair of dice and roll them. It's like, oh, big city marketing girl meets small
yeah,
town,
yeah. The big
whatever.
hotel, that's going to put the little family business hotel in Christmas.
Yeah, out of business.
Can
It's
we
like,
please
oh my gosh.
plot? It's
And
like,
if you're to our female audience members, do you really like those movies? Like, honestly, do you really want to sit down, curl up with a tea, and watch a Lifetime Christmas movie? Is that
oh
really?
yeah, it's
I
big.
would rather poke my eyes out or watch the Chicago Bears play a football game.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
ouch.
that's
All
both.
right, those were my three questions. You got three for me, Brady.
Yeah, pretty similar along the same lines. Just really more general, best and worst. First two questions. What would you say is the best and the worst experience with Christmas, just in general, whether it's back then or even now? What would you say you really despise about the holiday, and what's something that you love?
Yeah, I mean, oh man, lots of things. There was a year where I think I I think I mentioned I got a bunch of Viking stuff. I was a kid living in Minnesota. And that was just a great Christmas. And probably too, because I was 10 or 11, which is, I think, the perfect age for a boy. It's like, it just doesn't get any better than that.
No responsibility,
Um, Nothing.
no
And you're
bill.
not self-conscious. You don't care about girls. School is nothing, right? It's just you have no expectations. Your parents don't even think that you'll wash your hands. So it does, it's just like, it's just such a great age. And when my son was that age, he was awesome, right? It was awesome. It was just, and I told him, I'm like, this is it, man. This is the pinnacle of being a boy. It's like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And that year we had Christmas, and then like the next day we drove to Florida from Minnesota and spent like 2 weeks in Florida.
Hmm.
So that was probably my favorite Christmas ever. That was just not something that we did on a regular basis, ever go anywhere but family
Yeah.
for Christmas. So that was great. Then the unfortunate Christmas was, it's probably, man, it's got to be, this is scary. It's got to be pushing 30 years ago now.
Hmm.
My grandfather died on Christmas,
Oh, gee.
and I was at my sister's house, and then we got word that, and he'd been ill a little bit and stuff, but he passed away on Christmas, and it was, when somebody's like when your grandparent and they're in their late 80s or whatever, you're not like you're sad, but it's not like, oh my gosh, this is so unexpected. He was taken so young at 87.
Yeah.
It's not that's not how you see it. You miss them and stuff, but it's more of a kind of a remembrance of, your grandfather or whatever. So it's not terrible. It's just that then consumed Christmas,
Yeah.
right? This is all that you're kind of thinking about. And, my brother-in-law did a nice thing. He said when we were talking about it, maybe it's a special calling to die on Christmas, right?
Hmm.
Like maybe it's a little special thing to actually, you know, die on Christmas. And that I don't know, maybe there's something to that, right? Like it just, but as a kid, well, I wasn't a kid. Um, but as a younger person, you know, and my nieces and nephews, that makes it kind of a sad Christmas, right?
Oh, yeah. Was that your dad's dad?
That was my mom's dad. My dad's dad died in like 1972.
Oh, wow.
So long time ago from lung cancer. He smoked like his entire life.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people from his generation.
Yeah.
picked up smoking in the 40s, 30s or 40s, and then couldn't kick it, and eventually it gets you, right?
Well, yeah, that's like drinking coffee to that generation. It's everybody
Yeah,
did.
it was.
Even if you don't do it, you don't like it, you still do it socially because everybody's, uh, yeah, same thing. Grandpa died of emphysema because he smoked. He quit once they realized it was bad for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is and here's an amazing thing about that here. This is called a weave. uh so my dad then many years later went and had like a medical exam when he was, I don't know, he was probably in his mid 50s. And he had never had like an x-ray, like a chest x-ray or anything, but they did a chest x-ray and stuff. And the doctor sat down with him and said, "You lived in a house with smokers, didn't you?"
Mm,
And my dad was like, "How would you know that?" He's like, "I can see it in your lungs."
yeah.
And my dad said, he's like, in that moment, I was mad at my dad who had
Mm,
passed away, 25 years ago, whatever. But I was mad at him for having smoked all those years when I
mm,
was a kid.
yeah.
And, it's true. They didn't know to the extent, especially secondhand smoke, right? They just did not understand what it did, but the doctor could still see whatever they see for lungs in my dad's lungs, just secondhand smoke. And my dad never smoked.
Yeah.
So that was pretty interesting. Anyway, that's a weave,
Yeah. Well,
right? Next question.
yeah. So your worst, you said the worst was the passage. So the third would be, yeah, what we're talking about. What do you have an all-time greatest Christmas movie that you love and you watch it every year?
Man, so many, it's ridiculous. Like there's uh I love A Christmas Story just because of the nostalgia, right? I
Yeah.
just love it. The movie came out in like 1982,
Yeah.
right? But it's set in like 1939. It's just the innocence. There's no politics. There's no, it's escapism for people our age to
Yeah.
go back to a simpler time when you were excited about a BB gun and having turkey
Yeah.
and, playing outside and just all of that. There's something, and even the classroom, the school that the kids in looked a lot like one of my elementary schools,
Yeah.
like a crappy old drafty building with the big windows
Right.
and the crappy wooden desks and all of that. That was my experience in like elementary school, was
Yeah.
that exactly, right?
Yeah.
The curmudgeonly teacher kind of, I had one of those in first grade too, right? It was just like, so I do love that one. It's a Wonderful Life is one of my favorite movies of all time. I have that multiple editions of that on Blu-ray and 4K and everything else, and I absolutely love that movie.
Yeah.
Especially as a dad, the burden that the dad has in the movies for his own family
Mm,
and how that weighs on him and everything. I think that's particularly poignant as an adult father.
yeah.
I relate to that, and just again the old timey stuff, right? The nostalgia, the city street lit up with Christmas ornaments, and people helping each other and knowing neighbors and all of that.
Do you find yourself enjoying watching older movies now, looking back, even black and white, back
Oh
in
my gosh, 100%.
yeah.
Like I love anything like 80s and older. I love those movies, and it's the nostalgia part of it, but also the way of life and how people were,
Exactly.
right?
Just
People just were different, and they were more normal, and they were more um, saying what's on their mind and not watching their verbiage.
right.
And
Yeah, I think for me, I've really just started just enjoying watching, going back to the Humphrey Bogart movies and
yeah,
and even some of the Clint Eastwood and those. but it just seemed like when you get back into the 40s, the patriotism was something
Yeah, all that.
everybody had. And your neighbors, you knew your neighbors, you cared about other people because they're Americans like you, and you're all
Yeah.
on the same team together. And I think that that's refreshing when you watch, whether it's Andy Griffith or one of those older movies,
Yep.
see that just kind of ingrained throughout the film because of the culture where it was. That it's just fascinating to see. And uh,
Yeah, it's not even the plot of the movie, right? It's just the day-to-day lives that people lived.
yeah,
You look at that and you're like, oh man, we've lost something,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Well, the way that the world is now too, it's just spinning so fast that when you watch older movies and you see such a slower pace, it's almost relaxing and refreshing to see that. Uh, it makes you kind of wish, man, I could definitely go back to that time where it's more simple and we give up technology wise quite a bit, but that simplicity, but also that connection you had with other people, and I think that that was is something we're all kind of missing out on now.
Yeah, and so and especially when you watch the older Christmas shows too, there's just a wholesomeness to them and they're enjoyable and you're not nobody's hitting you over the head with some point they're trying to make about what I mean it's just enjoyable. Christmas Story is just like that, right? And then you see like millennials or Gen Zers watching Christmas Story. Oh, they're making fun of the Chinese people and all, it's like no, they're not. That's how it was. And it's the Chinese people making fun of themselves if it's anything.
They're laughing about it. Yeah.
They're the ones doing it and the
Yeah.
actors and stuff. And it's like there's nothing wrong with any of that, right? It's all good, fun
Yeah.
stuff. And it's like, but we're so concerned about it now. And it's like the best things are when you make fun of everybody equally,
Right.
right? This is why I love Eddie Murphy movies from the 80s because in Eddie Murphy movies in the 80s, everybody got made fun of.
Right.
White, black, Asian, woman, man, it didn't matter. You were going to get made fun of in some way. Every character is going to have,
Yeah.
get made fun of at some point. That's super enjoyable,
Yeah.
right? When it's even and it's not mean spirited. And if you look at any Eddie Murphy movie from back then, even when he says outlandish things in his stand-up comedy, he's laughing. It's a joke,
Yeah.
right? He's making fun of people and stuff, but including himself
Yeah.
and including, people he knows and friends and everything. And they all laugh at it because it's funny. It's not mean-spirited. That's the thing. You could tell with Eddie that it wasn't mean-spirited. It wasn't coming from this place of like anger or hate. It was coming from people are funny, right? And they do silly things and they act in silly ways. And I'm just going to mimic that back to everyone. And it's funny and it's enjoyable,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
there's something about that. And especially in the older Christmas movies, there's that spirit to them. Like even if you watch Scrooge, there's so many versions of it, right? But watching that and seeing it's a snapshot of life in the 30s, in the 50s, in the 80s, in the 2000s, right? Every time they do a new Scrooge, it's kind of a snapshot of life at that particular time. And I like that. Like, look what kids were doing in the 30s. They were skidding down ice in the street,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Right. That was fun.
Yeah, that's probably one of my, I should say that's probably one of my all-time favorites, and just how it kind of forces you to take a step back and realize, okay, this is really what's important. And, um, I love that. Do you have a favorite version of that Christmas Carol?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of them are good. There's one and it's in the 30s with Alistair Begg, I think, is the main actor. And the only thing I like about it is that it's super old, right? The story is exactly the same, but it's closer to the time period of the Dickens novel, right? And it's they're setting it in the 1800s, but the movie's made in the 1930s.
Mm.
Um, and so just the way people dress and behave and act and everything, I find that interesting, right? Special effects not so great, but just there's a scene where they have like Cratchits have like 8 kids, right? They have like a whole house full of kids, and they're so excited about Christmas dinner
Yeah.
because I'm sure they get like a potato and a piece of bread every day for their meals, right?
Yeah.
In this time period. That was a luxury. So they get a goose and they're super happy about getting a goose and having potatoes and some rum pudding or whatever it was, right? And the kids are just so excited because it's a special meal,
Yeah. I love that.
right? I don't see kids getting excited about special meals very often.
Yeah. How about staying warm? As you know,
Yeah, that was the prime objective. It's like, can we have a fire in the fireplace just to stay warm,
yeah,
right?
coal is
These
expensive.
were the luxuries of life. Hey, we have enough coal to stay warm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gee,
Yeah.
right?
It's
There's something nice about seeing this simplicity of that and realizing how much we have and how far we've come and that we take it all for granted, apparently.
puts things in perspective nicely when you think of how difficult and what a struggle just living and surviving was. Not all that long ago.
Not that long ago,
Yeah.
right? Not that long ago. Like I think I said last time, like my dad grew up in a house that didn't have a indoor plumbing
Yeah.
for the first couple of years, right? And my grandparents talked about not having electricity. And my grandpa that I mentioned earlier, his first house that he lived in North Dakota was a sod house,
Mm,
literally a house made out of sod.
wow.
So a mud hut.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. And that's just like one generation ago,
Yeah.
right? Like that's my grandfather. That's not like some ancient thing. That was my grandfather lived in a sod hut.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. It's kind of crazy, right? It's like you can't even comprehend. It feels like we talked about before, things have changed. The how fast things change now is so different than, you know, maybe over your life, one major thing would happen if you were born in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And now it's every year something major happening.
Right. Yeah.
Drones are attacking the East Coast. I didn't have that on my bingo card for
Oh man. Yeah, that's right. Have we
so
do we have a theory on that? What
it's the government. I don't
yeah,
know what else it is. They don't seem worried enough about it for it
right,
not to be them. Do you know what I'm
exactly.
saying?
Well, and the fact that they're over some like one of the bases, they're over
Yeah, it's like
we're
it's like the Chinese spy balloon, right? That we just let fly over across the whole country. Imagine that.
harmless.
Like
Uh,
that's,
no,
I mean,
if there was any danger or threat in the government,
something would be done about it.
shooting those things down over air
Yeah. I
bases.
still don't. Why won't we just shoot them down?
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. So speaking of pet peeves, this is the get off my lawn section, and we kind of mentioned it. I mentioned it once before too, but we talk about things that are pet peeves in terms of like what they used to be like to what they are now, and that
Mhm.
we don't like how the changes happen. But I was thinking about it too, just this week. I would have been over a Christmas break when I was a kid. I I would have been playing, but my pet peeve is the playing outside versus sitting in the dark room playing on a computer.
Mm.
This is the contrast, right? And we've talked about it before, but like when I was a kid, this week, like I was saying, I would Christmas week, it was Minnesota, it was 20 below with 40 feet of snow. I would be outside in a snowmobile suit every day, playing, sliding, skating, playing
Yeah,
hockey, throwing snowballs all day in the freezing cold, right?
right.
Without even thinking about it. But that's what we did. And maybe the indoor activity was you'd grab a record album, you'd put the record in, and then you'd look at the album cover and back, and maybe playing Andy Williams Christmas songs or something. That's what we did.
Yeah,
Uh, and now it's like I think kids don't go play outside. They go up into their room and sit on their computer or on their phone, and maybe they go to a friend's house, and then do they go play outside at their friend's house? No, they sit together and play on a computer, and it's just like I said, they don't even watch TV. They just it's computer or video games or whatever instead of just going outside and playing, right?
right. Yeah,
And we lost something when that change occurred. And I don't know exactly when it happened, but that's a pet peeve of mine.
yeah. That's a good one.
Do you have one?
Yeah, definitely. This time of year, for me, the traffic is so terrible, but I think just how people's patience in general has eroded over time. I mean, if a light goes green, if you're not on your gas pedal, the guy behind you's giving you the
Yeah, he's giving you
horn.
the horn.
I mean, it's just out of control. Parking lots, the way people are so just impatient, and uh, it just it's to a point where it's gotten so aggressive the way people are driving now that it's frustrating, but it's also dangerous. And when you've got young drivers out there, um, you really it just raises the fear a little bit.
Yeah.
These people are just driving with their heads.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, yeah,
Yeah, I agree with that one. And it didn't used to be that bad, right? It
yeah,
definitely did not used to be that bad. I think it's people are so entitled
yeah,
that, how dare you, you know, take a parking spot or, make me wait 1 second or whatever. It's just everybody's so entitled that the world just revolves around them.
yeah,
Uh, and it's part of the reason why I don't like to go out because I don't like to experience that. It's too exhausting, and I'm an introvert, so that doubles down on that, right? It's just like
yeah.
if I go to the store or something, I have to like sit in a dark room for a week. It's like just to recover from that
Well,
experience. It's like, you're like, oh,
yeah, I know. Like, what's the rate of high blood pressure now
oh my
versus
gosh.
when we were, when we had our driver's license? Because it just seems like people are so stressed, and everybody has anxiety. It seems like
Yeah.
especially the younger generations, they all check that box of anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. And part of that has to be with just how fast the world is spinning and how impatient people are, whether it's in
It's
a
hard to keep up.
grocery store, in line. Everybody is, pushing and shoving, and it gets uglier and uglier every year. It seems like.
It sure does. It sure does seem like that. All
Yeah.
right. So X post of the week. I have one this week. I'm blocking my fancy graphic right there. Look at the nice
Look at that.
bokeh, the like bokeh behind me there. I've got the post. I'm going to put it up, but I know some people are not watching. I just want to tell you, you're missing so much if you're only listening to these
It's
podcasts, right?
right. Yeah.
It's the facial expressions and the dismissive way we look at each other
Yeah.
and stuff. It's like you're missing all that part of it. That's part of the fun, right? So I'll read it anyway, but I'm gonna put it up here. So here's the tweet. What did teenagers in the 90s do with their free time, essentially, is what that's saying. So now, Brady, I was a little bit older than you in the 90s. So I'm going to deflect this question to you. What did teenagers do in the 90s with their free time?
Oh boy. Well, let's see. So teenager, 90s. Let's see. Are we talking like early, like 13, 14, or
Yeah,
more?
let's go with that. Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. Well, you're starting to get into interest in girls is just starting to happen there when you're hitting that early teenage. So,
Did you still go outside?
oh my goodness, yeah, we were definitely climbing, still, real active outside. Sports was we were all into sports, so we were definitely playing basketball and outside, going to the park, playing pickup games. Was fun, and yeah, but that was a big part of my experience was more on the athletic side of things, um, playing sports and that. But yeah, I mean, you don't have your license yet, so
Yeah.
you're still riding your bike around everywhere. Um,
Renting movies at Blockbuster, maybe?
yeah, was Blockbuster out then? I remember when they first.
Yeah, I think so. Or there was movie rental stuff in the early 90s.
Yeah, we had a Video 8. Uh, that was I think our first, um, yeah, where we could rent those Video 8. That didn't seem to last very long.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, so yeah, we didn't really rent until later, to more like when you're in high school, and then yeah, I do remember we had a Blockbuster that eventually got there, and we were renting movies. And it's funny. I remember Blockbuster was huge. I mean,
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
like
huge.
going and walking around. You're looking for movies, but you're also it's almost like cruising a little bit.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seeing who else is there and talking, and oh, hey,
And you're
we're
talking to your friends and you're like, what movie should I watch? And oh, Phoebe Cates is in that one. Oh, yeah, I'm getting that one, right? It's like there's, there's a new Eddie Murphy movie out. It's like you got to rent that one, right? But don't watch it when your parents are home, right?
yeah,
Like that was
yeah. No, remember that like it was yesterday, walking around, and yeah. Or if there's a movie you really wanted to see, and then you're like, oh, there's nothing behind all the cases, and you're turning them around.
Yeah, oh gosh, that's the worst experience. Just explain it to people. So the movies were like in the box on the shelves, right? But at some point in time, they switched where it was just an empty box.
Yeah,
And you took the empty box and went up front, and then they grabbed the movie and stuck it in one of those plastic cartridges things to give you to take home, right? But there was a time when there was the actual movies were there, and sometimes though you take a box and there wouldn't be anything in it, and you're like, ah, crap, they're out of that one, right?
yeah.
And so then you're like, oh, now we have to watch, some stupid movie that we've already seen 10 times because the new, Lethal Weapon is already completely rented,
Oh yeah,
right? And
yeah,
no streaming services, there was nothing like that. So it's like if you had your heart set on, watching a movie like that uh when it first came out on rental and it wasn't there, then you're just like, oh, now you got to go back and watch, Back to the Future again or something. But
yeah. That reminds me. I mean, the status of movie theaters in general. I imagine they're hurting
You'd
financially.
think, you'd think because it's just like, you know, you have a really nice TV at home and the popcorn is free.
Yeah, you
And
can.
there's not creepy people with screaming kids.
Yeah, 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 and you can stream it, and probably a
Yeah.
much cheaper, much cheaper than four tickets that are
It's
way
like
over.
you're in like $100 for a movie and some popcorn now. It's like,
Yeah,
who's doing that?
yeah. I think unless they drop their prices significantly, it could be a matter of time they start to.
Could die out.
Yeah,
They'll still be, like retro theaters for movie symposiums and festivals and stuff, but I see it kind of going away other than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's too cost prohibitive. It's not a great experience anymore.
Yeah.
It was back in the day when you didn't have any other option. And it's funny because you think about it, it's like when I was a kid, like you couldn't see an R movie, right? You couldn't even, the only place to watch a movie was in a theater and you couldn't get in. So
Right.
it's like, and then when videotapes came out and HBO and everything, it's like, whoa, look at this. I can watch an R-rated movie. And then
Yeah.
you realize, yeah, I probably should have watched that
Yeah.
movie.
That's,
Right. It's like, whoa, I was unaware that that existed in the world.
yeah.
We're
Yeah.
probably the first generation who got old before we should have, maybe, right? Because of stuff like that. Like the previous generation didn't have that experience, I don't think, right?
Yeah. Well,
Renting R-rated movies and stuff.
yeah.
That was Gen Xers.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to mention, I had a flashback when we were talking earlier about, big time wrestling back when we
Oh
were,
yeah.
it was huge. It was
That was
huge,
huge.
but we knew it was fake. And
Sure.
you a 280-pound man that grabs a chair and
Hits
smashes
you over
something.
the head. Yeah.
If that was real, you'd have blood
Yeah.
all over, and
Concussions nonstop.
you floss your teeth and there's blood all over the place. It's like a chair to the head from a 280-pound man would be
Yeah.
blood covering. And yet they pan around the audience back in the early 80s, and they pan around usually in Alabama or somewhere, and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
losing their mind. They're
They're going crazy.
screaming when the bad guy, and the good guy is like, Johnny the Patriot, or
Yeah. Yeah. The bad guy is the Shah of Iran or whatever
the
the one
American
guy's
flag,
name
yeah,
was.
against the Marauder, who's got the mask
Yeah.
on, and he's, the tag team where the other guy sneaks around and smashes the guy, and the audience is, because the ref didn't see it, and they turn around
Yeah. The ref.
these yeah, these people are losing their mind, and you just think, wow, that was, talk about an innocent time when,
Yeah, and it was awesome entertainment, right? It was
oh
just
yeah,
because it's escapism, right? I think it goes back to like wrestling is escapism.
yeah,
And it was just, entertaining even though you knew it was stupid,
yeah,
right? I just remember as a kid, it was what you talked about. In fourth grade, you'd show up to school on Monday and hey, did you see, the high flyers defeat the Iron Cross and the, whatever it was, it's like, and then you watch these movies, like there's a couple of movies about it, about professional wrestlers during that time period.
yeah,
And they're such sad stories, right? The lives that a lot of these guys lived. We thought they were like superhero kind of stuff. They're
yeah,
living in a van, right? Like making 50 bucks a wrestling match where they have back problems, they're shooting up novocaine and painkillers and everything else just to get out there, and then it's like 3 rows of folding chairs, right? It's not like they're playing at the Jerry Dome. It's not like Tyson versus Paul, right? This is like, and the funny part is, like, somebody told me, like, I went to the high school gymnasium to watch one of the all-star wrestling things, and after the match, you're out in the parking lot getting into your station wagon, and all of the wrestlers get into a van,
yeah,
right? There's like, they're high-fiving each other, and they were killing each other 10 minutes ago.
right,
They all
yeah,
just get into a van and drive off together,
yeah,
right?
to the
It's
next time.
like
Yeah,
it's
no,
like that was a shock to my sensibilities, right? They're all friends. What are we doing? Like,
well, and you knew, because they'd always have the famous wrestler, and he'd be going up against some no-name
no
guy,
name.
I did Ultimate Warrior versus Joe Bass, or
Yeah, yeah, just something.
and
Oh, he was a college wrestler, you know.
but he'd always come out and start winning right away.
Yeah,
The bad,
right.
the guy who was a no-namer, he's all of a sudden got the big name guy in up
He's
against the
got a
rope.
headlock, a figure four leg lock, right? He's got him in a half Nelson. And
Yeah.
then,
How the
but then the tide turns.
crowd- Yeah, the Hulk Hogan. Oh gosh, yeah, that's going back a ways, but that was so entertaining, even though
It
you
was
knew.
entertaining. It's entertaining just talking about it because it was so campy
Oh yeah,
and kind of dumb, but yet somehow inexplainably it was entertaining,
yeah,
right? And they really tapped into something, and I don't even know exactly what it was that they tapped into, but they definitely tapped into something. It was wildly popular
yeah.
among kids,
Oh
right? Like 10
yeah.
year olds and 15-year-olds loved professional. And I just remember, like, I was watching the local Minnesota station, and I saw a documentary recently. They had all these wrestling alliances in states and regions, right? And then all your wrestlers in that region, they were their own self-contained unit.
Hmm.
And then they started wrestling in Madison Square Garden, and that became a big thing because they could fill Madison Square Garden. I mean, I'm watching it in a high school gymnasium where there's like 20 people. And
Yeah,
then you see it's like, oh my gosh, USA Network has professional wrestling in Madison Square Garden with 20,000 people watching it.
yeah,
And they have SD Jones, and they started bringing in all these big name guys. And then that's when it really exploded. WWE came about, took over kind of all the regionals.
yeah.
But, we had Mean Gene Okerlund was the announcer, and they would slap him and talk down to him and stuff. And it was, I don't even know if you realized that it was a shtick. Like the whole thing was a shtick, right? Like
Yeah,
the interviews and everything. Tell us how you're going to beat the Crusher, And well, let me tell you something, Mean Gene.
yeah.
And it's like, but it was just it's all shtick, Randy Macho Man Savage, and these guys are
Uh,
veins popping out of their head,
yeah, it was that's
spray tans.
yeah, they were at the pinnacle of their acting, and
Yeah.
they man, they had to maintain their huge muscles and their agility to
Yeah, there was that, right? And it was all probably steroids at the time, but it's
yeah.
like it was entertaining. So to you professional wrestlers out there watching the podcast, uh, we thank you, right? You sacrificed your bodies and your dignity to entertain us, and we thank you as
Yeah,
10-year-old kids. We loved every second of it, right?
it was worth the price.
So that was worth the price of admission on Channel 9 in Minneapolis. Is what I watched that on. Hey, I got a show and tell, Brady, and
Right.
this is going to be an interesting one. And sometimes it's hard if I have my back thing on, but let's see if I can get it in camera here. Here we go. Now you're like, what the heck is that?
Yeah,
Right?
the stars. Yeah, what is that?
Can you read what it says on there at the bottom? I don't know if you can.
Yeah,
It
oh,
says it says America. It says 76, and then it says America, and there's a bunch of stars on there. Now, this is a piece of wood, by the way. So how did I get that stuff onto the piece of wood?
you
Like, did I
had to,
draw it with a pen? What did I use
you
there?
had to have burned it in there.
Yeah, with a
Yeah.
wood burner. Do you remember those?
Yeah, we did that in shop class with the teacher
It's
missing
just
3 fingers and
yeah, exactly. It was, Mr. Strickler, the shop teacher with like an eye patch and two fingers missing, right? Um, so I think this is fourth grade. This is 1976. It was the bicentennial. And so we got to make stuff for the bicentennial.
oh,
And I don't know if you can see, but there's punch holes here. So this was like a cover that I made for a presentation that I gave in fourth grade on the bicentennial.
okay.
And which is kind of interesting now because we're coming up on the 250th celebration in 2026, right? And I've already heard that Trump's going to have a big celebration in Iowa and everything for the 250th anniversary. Well, the 200th, the bicentennial was a big deal, and we had all sorts of arts and crafts projects, and we dressed it up. We dressed up like characters from the early American Revolution and all of this stuff at school. It was a big deal. There was a logo, like an official bicentennial logo with the three pipers from the Revolutionary War, kind of a thing,
Yeah.
drummer and a piper. So I
Yeah.
made this. It was a wood burner. It looks like a pencil, a big plugged in pencil, and it gets really hot. And I guess you could make welds or something with it. But you burn wood. Smells really good when you're burning the wood, and it has kind of this look to it with the burnt wood and everything. Um, but it's just funny. So now I've had this for 50 years almost, right? I
Yeah.
made that like 50 years ago almost. And bicentennial, that was a big deal. And it's funny because in the past, when I'm with work people who are younger than I am, and I do anything like mention the bicentennial, it just goes over their head. Like they have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Bicentennial, what does that even mean? Right.
Well, and it's probably too dangerous to be giving kids a
A wood
cautery
burner.
burn. Yeah.
The teacher's like, don't touch the tip.
Yeah.
It's really hot. It's like,
Uh,
yeah,
where do I go
yeah,
now?
yeah. It's like, teacher,
We got matching.
we got like, what's this large blister I have on the end of my finger, right?
Man. Yeah.
You learned that stuff is hot,
Yeah.
right? And that tools and power tools are dangerous.
Yeah. But you have to
So,
be honest. How many times does the waiter tell you, don't touch the plate, it's hot? And
oh
the
yeah, and then the first thing you do is touch it, and then they're like, "I just said it was hot. What part of that sentence did you not
come
understand?"
on. Isn't
And then
anybody?
yeah, and then you realize the reason why the plates are hot. I don't know if everybody knows this. It's because it's been sitting under a heat lamp,
Yeah.
waiting to come to your table, right?
Mhm.
That's what makes the plate hot. It's not that they microwaved the plate, which they do sometimes, but it's usually because it sat under a heat lamp waiting for the rest of your order to come up, and that
Mm,
makes the plate really hot.
yeah.
And the waiter comes out and he's got, you know, three gloves on and a towel holding the plate to set it down in front of you. And then the first thing everybody does is grab it. And it's like, yeah, I just told you it was hot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
well, anyway, that was my show and tell for
Yeah.
the week. It's like I have a few of those things, laying around the house. It's just kind of funny, right? When you see something you made as a
Yeah.
little kid.
Yeah. Every once in a while I'll put on the Antique Roadshow and you see they had these Uncle Wiggily books. I don't know if you ever heard of those or familiar with them.
Mm-mm.
They were storybooks from the early like 1900s, and my dad actually had several of them,
Oh,
uh,
cool.
has several of them, and would read them to us when we were little. And so I was just kind of looking to see what the value of them were. And there were some that were like $3,500
Nice.
for an old bit, but
I
that
think
was
my mom gave all that stuff away, and now it's probably worth a fortune. Like I
yeah.
was looking at, I had mentioned it last week. I had metal lunch boxes,
Oh yeah.
right? And I had Pele, Globetrotters, Scooby Doo. Um, who else did I
Yeah,
have?
the
I
jaw.
probably had a, yeah, I probably had a Happy Days one or something
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah,
And you can find them on eBay. Like the exact ones that I had, you can actually find them on eBay. They're
yeah,
like $400,
yeah.
right? And literally, you probably bought it at Woolworths for like $3, right?
Yeah,
And I had a I they used to make the mugs. The thermal mugs used to be glass on the inside. Do you remember that? Like
oh yeah,
Thermos used to make glass. Glass is a great insulator, right? So they had these. It was like this metal glass. I don't even know what, but it was glass.
yeah,
And so, you're tossing your lunchbox around and you get to school and you pour out the milk and just shards of
yeah.
glass come out because you broke your thermos,
I
right?
remember that. Yeah,
And it wasn't until a little bit later that they went to the all plastic, whatever, insulated
yeah,
plastic ones. But it's like, yeah, I probably broke a half a dozen of those. I'm a first grader. How am I going to
yeah.
not break a glass thermos, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. But you know what? we didn't have peanut allergies and all
No,
these
no one did.
activities and all that now.
And I would
Um,
even say there wasn't any autism
yeah,
or peanut allergy or a lot of different other things, right? That there
yeah.
weren't any of ever. And,
May-
you know,
Maybe the BPA in the thermoses is
yeah,
what.
that's what it was. It was, I drank too many thermos worth of whatever toxins. I just saw a story that, like, the snow, speaking of winter, since it was the first day of winter yesterday, the snow in the Wizard of Oz was made of asbestos flakes.
Oh, no, I didn't know
So
that.
literally 100% asbestos flakes were in the, and then it was like they painted the Tin Man with like lead-based silver oxide paint or
Oh
whatever.
man.
It's like this absolute poison.
Oh man, really?
And it's like they didn't know.
Yeah,
And so you can't really hold them culpable for that. They just didn't know back then. That's
yeah.
asbestos. I mean, we used asbestos when I was a kid. All of our the little trays that you would put your hot beakers on from the Bunsen burner and everything, those were asbestos. And the gloves that you used to pick up hot beakers were made of asbestos. And nobody thought anything of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
I it didn't harm me to my knowledge, right? So I
yeah,
think it's more about long-term exposure, like in your house, is the real danger, right?
yeah. And that breeds the conspiracy,
Yeah,
as
it does.
now is it where people they know that certain things cause health issues, but because of it makes tremendous profit, is that
Kind of
happening?
look the other way, right?
Yeah, where now it's so profitable that these whether these cancer rates are skyrocketing, and you think, okay, so is there something in our food that they're paying off the FDA, or
Yeah, it's
what
pretty
is?
clear that that's probably what happens, right? And I think RFK Jr. is going to take a bite out of that come
That'll be
a month from
interesting.
now.
It'll be interesting to see what he finds with
Like,
that.
why is stuff different in Europe and America? With the like, if you've ever gone to either Mexico or even Canada or Europe and had a soda there, or a pop, as they would
Yeah,
say in
go to bed.
Minnesota, the ingredients are different and they use a different sweetener, right?
Hmm.
Most of they'll use, if you're getting a straight up Coca-Cola, like in Mexico, it's made with cane sugar, right?
Yeah,
Not with
high
high
fructose.
fructose corn syrup, right? And same in Europe, it's made out of pure cane sugar. And then if you get a diet Coke, it's made with uh, um, a different sugar sweetener, non-sugar sweetener thing than we have
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
Like, what do we use? Aspartame? I forget what it is.
yeah,
Aspartame. And it's something different there.
yeah,
And their stuff tastes better because of
yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's just so much cheaper. To high fructose corn syrup is
Yeah,
so much
it's cheap.
cheaper. So dump it in. Same with chocolate. You go to Canada and you get a chocolate bar. It's like
Chocolate here is
the best
terrible.
chocolate I've ever
Yeah.
had in my entire life.
My
Uh,
wife refuses to eat like Hershey's chocolate and stuff
y-
here in America
yeah,
because she's from Germany, and it's like, this isn't even edible food. That's
yeah,
like, that's what she'd say. This is like eating a piece of cardboard,
yeah.
right?
Waxy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
waxy cardboard, right?
yeah,
It's like hot with tons of calories, right? You go to
yeah,
Europe and you get uh, a candy bar or a piece of chocolate. It's lusciously rich and flavorful and all this other stuff. It's because they have restrictions. You can't call it chocolate unless it's like 72%
right.
chocolate, right? Cocoa or whatever. It's like, things have, all the beer has, there's prescriptions for what it has to have in it to be a particular type of beer. There's regulations, right? And there
Yeah,
was that here to a certain degree. Like, I don't know if you're a bourbon person, but I love bourbon. And there was a period where bourbon was, they made it in bond, which means it had to be a certain way, right? There was actual laws in Kentucky that said, here's how it has to be to for you to produce and call it bourbon, it has to be this exactly, right? It has to
Yeah.
be a certain proof, and it has to be aged in oak, and it has to all the whole whatever all the stuff is, right? The ingredients, everything. It was restricted, which meant the quality was good, which is why the beer in Germany is way better too, because it has particular guidelines of how it has to be made,
Yeah.
and it's 10 times better,
Oh,
right? It's not even close.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see what gets uncovered and if they make,
Oh gosh, it's going to be fascinating.
yeah, make us
It's like
healthier.
hold on to your butts, right? Like it's going to be very interesting. This next month and then the month after that is going to be it's going to be fascinating, right?
Yeah.
We're going to learn a lot of stuff, and it's going to be interesting. I think we're kind of in for a ride here.
Yeah.
Well, Brady, is there anything else? You got any other parting shots? This is Christmas week.
No,
Couple
just
of
want,
days, Santa will be coming down that chimney.
that's right. Just want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas
Oh
and
yeah, same to you guys, and
all the list.
hopefully Santa brings all the great presents, and your dad
Yeah.
sneaks a good one in there. And
Yeah. Be patient on
I
the uh,
yeah,
be patient and love your neighbor and all those good things.
I plan not to leave my house as much as possible, and I'm gonna watch all those Christmas shows,
Yeah.
and then some college football again next weekend and all.
Yeah.
It's like the weather's going to be really nice here in Arizona, which I enjoy too. My family doesn't. They want it to be cloudy and colder, so it feels like Christmas. And it's like, no thanks. I lived through enough of those feeling like Christmases to have decided I'd rather sit outside in the sun and
Yeah.
uh, play in the backyard. So, and
Yeah.
I told my son the other day, we're watching the game, the college game. It was in Texas. The other games were where it was freezing. Like in
Yeah.
Penn State was freezing, and it was
Oh man.
freezing in Ohio State. I mean, it was cold.
Yeah.
Texas looked like it was nice. It looked like it might have been in the 70s and stuff. People are sitting in the stands with short sleeve shirts on, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember my dad saying for like the bowl games and everything else, we're sitting in Minnesota. It's 20 below. We're freezing our butts off, and then you see the Orange Bowl, and the players are sweating, and the
Yeah.
fans have Hawaiian shirts on and t-shirts on, and they're sitting there, and the grass is green, and my dad would just look at it and those lucky dogs. That's what he would say. Just look at those lucky dogs sitting like, and then later in life, I realized, Dad, you weren't forced to live in Minnesota, right? Like this was a life choice. Like, I don't know why you made that life choice, but you made that life choice. We didn't have to live there our whole lives, for crying out loud. It's like,
You know it's bad when you let your lab out to go to the bathroom and it forgets what it's like outside and they go to the door, so you open the door to let them out and they march out and then the snow is blowing, it's freezing cold, and they turn around like, no, no, let me back in, I changed my
yeah,
mind,
yeah.
as you close the door.
Yeah.
Go pop.
Bye, Charlie. It's like, and the dog just sits there looking at you when you come back, and they got those snowball things in their hair, the
Yeah,
underneath, and like,
you wanted to go out.
yeah, it's like you had to go. And then it's like, you don't worry about the waste product until spring, and
Right.
then it thaws out in your yard, and
Yeah.
it's awful. Right. I don't miss that either. Right. In Arizona, everything dries up in like 10 minutes. Right.
Yeah.
It's not these soggy ones that have been under 8 feet of snow for 6 months. Right.
Yeah.
On that lovely Christmas note,
Right.
right, we will remind you to hit subscribe and like wherever you consume the show. We're on practically every social media platform that you can shake a stick at, except that one by the Chinese TikTok. We're not gonna do that one.
No
I don't
TikTok.
trust TikTok. So
No
we're on
TikTok.
YouTube, Spotify, and X. We're on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. We have an Instagram. If you have questions, you want to talk to us, you want to scold us for our bad behavior, all of that, that's a great place to do it. We love to interact with you, but want you to subscribe and like. Also, a reminder that we are on UHF channel 75 in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. So uh, that's just something you can enjoy over the Christmas time as well. So for Brady and myself, thanks for tuning in again this week. And we really do wish that everyone has a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We may see you before the New Year, but have a Happy New Year. And
Yeah.
just remember, for Christmas or any other day, we want you to have fun, but be home before the streetlights come on.
Yes. Yes. Merry Christmas, everyone.
All right. Merry Christmas, Brady. We will see you soon. See you next time, folks.
Take care. Bye
Bye bye.
bye.